We're back. Welcome to the Logosphere. I'm Chris Stites, here as always with J.D. Roof.
Hello, good evening.
And before we really get into it, what were you saying about Apple? What's going on over there?
I was watching an interview and Tim Cook, he was asked if he owns Bitcoin or Ethereum in crypto. And this is kind of interesting because I don't think he's ever really come out for or against it. You know, he's a tech giant, and he just was like, yeah, he's like, I'm really interested in it. I'm really interested in crypto. And, you know, like he admitted that he owned Bitcoin and possibly Ethereum. He's just kind of warming society up that like, hey, we might have some kind of technology built in our tech that could, you know, you could trade Bitcoin.
Oh, I see. He's about
like
to launch Apple's going to jump way into the crypto thing in one way or another.
Yeah, and it's not hard for a company like to do that because, you know, these DEXs or these little apps that you can store your Bitcoin on, they're really simple. Like it's not super complicated.
So when Tim Cook goes out and says some stuff like this,
it's exciting.
Does value go up for coins?
I mean, the value's going up already. So it makes you wonder, like, was this timed? You know, like, is this planned out? But I don't think so, because Apple's never really expressed a huge interest into it. But I think it makes sense. Like, if you're going to have a phone, you could literally have all your digital currency, you know, on that phone. And if you had like a very secure wallet on that phone, I can't imagine why they wouldn't want to get a piece of that. But I mean, I'll say this and we can move on to another topic, but once you go down the kind of the blockchain technology and the boom,
just never come back.
Yeah, it's like you're orange pilled, you know. It's like
you just try to bring everyone with you every chance you get.
I don't.
It's like the new vegan, you know, like there's this, there's like a stereotype about, you know, you talk to a vegan and they want to tell you about it. And
they want to tell you about it. They want you to like watch 5 documentaries on it. Yeah. But have I really tried to do that with you? No,
you do you do more of like a, no, you shouldn't, you know?
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's like reverse psychology. You're like, you know, you're not ready for it. I bet you know.
You couldn't handle it.
Bet you couldn't handle it. Well, I guess that's a good segue. What do you want to talk about today? We've been kind of chatting about something sort of related, I guess, to cryptocurrency, at least for you, which is God. And this topic of God, and the way we were framing it is like, why is God so lame? I guess we both have our own story of coming to appreciate things that are religious or godly. But how do we get to it? And from a place where it wasn't so attractive, you know, how does it become attractive?
I remember always looking at church and looking at this whole idea of religion, like it's just a bunch of bullshit, and it's just a religious cult, or you know what I mean? Like as my ideas matured as I got older, it just was lame. The singing, the dancing, the people like raising their hands up in the air.
It's just not sexy at all.
It's not sexy. It's not cool. It's a lot cooler to get a skateboard and like, smoke weed.
The efforts for when religions try to like sexy up their religions, it's not good either.
Work.
It's not good.
Makes it worse.
They need to stick to their guns.
Yeah, like when they do the Christian rock stuff.
Yeah.
It's like the music
sucks. We're cool guys.
Yeah,
we get it.
We're cool too.
We got tunes.
But it's like, why is youth camp like lame? Why is any of that? I mean, maybe we're saying this from our point of view, right? But that stuff was lame to me when I was a kid. It was just not engaging at all.
Yeah. I guess obedience is sort of lame. You know, you think about things that are not lame in the eyes of like youth or popular culture. You think about like hip hop, you know, or
hip hop's cool.
Hip hop's cool, and hip hop is
punk rock.
Yeah, both of these things in their own flavors are very
like F you to the man kind of
F you to the man, just contrarian and countercultural and all of that stuff. You know, what's the deal? And there is like an ethic there, I think. It's, you know, you think about a lot of the kind of hero archetypes. There's always a degree of like edge, right? Because there's a naivety that people want to avoid. We all know like the church boy who's just afraid of doing the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
But there hasn't been developed this real, I don't know, sense. We need to be strong. We need to be risk taking. We need to be formidable. We need to kind of have our teeth cut And if you just, without learning the lessons in an authentic way, by just, by hearing the warnings of your elders and just listening, just for some reason that doesn't seem to be the way that it works best.
Right.
What a dilemma we're in.
Is it because we don't want to be disciplined?
I mean, that's the other thing. When I think about my own kind of history, on one hand, I just didn't want to go to church. It seemed stupid. Yeah. It seemed like a crutch for lesser-minded people, and there's all the things that you hear. But ultimately, I wonder if I just didn't want to do the things that it was asking, ultimately, right? That it requires sacrifice. It requires certain virtues, which are hard to demonstrate, which are hard to cultivate, so it's, rather than try to live up to things that are difficult, it's easier just to cynically, to poke holes in something and have even though it's kind of artificial, you have this air of superiority. You're looking down on other people so that you're able to kind of profit from this feeling of being someone or something, even though you haven't really earned it. You just, are sitting in judgment. And we still respect that. We respect the person who just goes on to the bitter end and never, even like we watch mafia movies. And the person who, ultimately they're doing, very immoral acts. But we still have this ethic around ratting, and you still want the guy on the stand to just to keep his oath, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. And just what a weird thing with the mafia, right? Because they're really religious.
Yes,
and they take their religion and they can rubber stamp their immoral actions and still be a follower of Christ and all this stuff. It's
the mafia is interesting because why do we love mafia stuff so much? And it is cool, right?
Yeah,
it's
I love mafia.
It's one of the most timeless, cool themes in movies, and it carries over into music and other things like that. But what's interesting about mafia is for us, I think it is emblematic of something that is somehow at once very ethical, and ethical because it adheres to its own ethic. It's internally rigid. It's internally ethical, right? There's there's a code.
Yeah, there's lieutenants. It's
not a lawless land.
Yeah.
But it's also very subversive because there is the oppressive force, which would be the greater society, right? The rules are kind of
rigged against you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have your own code that you stick to, and in doing that, you're able to do both. You kind of are able to be the rebel and to be the countercultural figure, but also be the person who has a code and is principled. Is it an honest rebellion towards something that isn't good, and there's some moral compass that's deep down within us
trying to point you in the right direction, and then we end up with the sober guys doing with a moral compass and a structure for living, designed for life,
Yeah. And it's still, that's why we also are interested in, I think about the Joker, at least the way it's portrayed in some.
I know. That was a painful, the new one.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the new, but I'm talking about
just in general.
The Heath Ledger depiction. I'm not an expert on the whole DC Comics series, and that might not be the most honest portrayal, but I was interested by that villain because it was, you talk about believing in nothing, but it's a bit of a contradictory phrase, right? There's still a belief, it's like atheism is a belief in the non-existence of God.
You believe in chaos.
Yeah,
you believe
true nihilism is still, it becomes belief in the tenets of nihilism. To really step away from being attached to some sort of ideology or some sort of philosophy or some sort of code is hard to do. Aversion is also an attachment, right? You could be attached to something, but if you're adverse to something, you're still attached to it in a way. So non-attachment would be something different than that.
Yeah.
But I thought the Joker was like this attempt at someone who was truly chaotic for its own sake.
And it's interesting because we need that chaos for creation.
Yeah, it's still interesting, but the Heath Ledger one, it's cool because we're looking for a certain purity in what's going on there.
He's like Jesus Christ inverted.
Yeah.
He's a beyond ideal
Of what though? And why do we
absolute chaos?
We admire it, right?
Yeah.
We admire something about it.
It's kind of like the Nietzsche thing, like be careful looking into the abyss because it'll look back at you.
Yeah. And even like there's some Jesus terms, which is like I wasn't brought here to bring peace, but to bring a sword.
Yeah.
There's certain lines in there that we kind of,
Well, and the funny thing is like Exodus, right? Because I've been watching the Jordan Peterson thing on that. When Moses goes to the Pharaoh and he goes, "Let my people go," that's the famous line, one of the famous lines in the Torah, right? In the Old Testament. He says, "Let my people go for 3 days so they can come onto me into the wilderness." So it's like they're escaping from a tyranny, but they're going. It's not like they're just going free, like the Joker, just do whatever you want in the wilderness, like fight, fuck, play, whatever, right? They're going into this other order with this other higher order of God, right? And it's like, to me, it's just so weird. It's like we have to have structure. Is that what that's saying? We have to have some kind of structure, good orderly direction, God. And if we don't, we're F.
Well, it comes to like a higher power idea. We always serve a master, right?
Yeah. Or we're possessed by a spirit of something, right? Like that sounds mystical, but that's not what we mean by that. It's like
drives.
Yeah, like evolutionary drives, whatever the hell you want to call them, right? Like sex is a huge one that you get just so wrapped up in it. It's like a hedonist, pleasure-seeking thing, but you're only happy for that sexual encounter for 5 minutes, and then it's on to the next thing.
So then there's certain.
Yeah, it's weird.
There's certain like moral codes that come, then when it gets recycled over generations, and then the Christian ethic becomes like, wait until you're married to have sex, and then suddenly it's super lame,
Right, and we're looking at that like, what?
Yeah.
We want to have our cake and eat it too.
But I'm sure it's brought on by years of experience of learning that when you serve the master of sex single-heartedly,
your life turns into
hell.
Absolute hell on earth. Like you will be miserable, guaranteed. Right? Maybe that's why like certain programs work so well. Like Alcoholics Anonymous is such a powerful program because it's preaching a more distilled Christian message, basically mixed with other faith practices, but to a broad population, right?
Yeah.
How do you not make waiting to have sex until you're married not lame?
Yeah.
How? I think the cat's out of the bag on that one. Like, what do you do? Like, do you come up with some kind of shot that makes it so people can't transmit disease and get pregnant until they're of age, so they can just go hog wild with their body parts, and then when they mature a little bit, they no, right? Like, you can't do anything like that. It's almost like we can't control nature.
Yeah,
because that's a natural drive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing. Like I even when I go and I'm like I just, when they sing and they do all that stuff, it's just so lame, right? Like, and I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that I'd rather go listen to like we talked about Bach.
Yeah,
like Bach was a big Christian. He made these pieces that are like, what's the best way to frame it? Fused into Christianity.
Well, there were masses. He was like on salary from I don't know the name, what church it was, but every week he and his family, he had like 16 kids or something. He taught them all how to write music, and he would compose, and they would create all the parts so that every Sunday or whatever it was for the particular, faith, they would have this whole original, intricate, glorious original musical composition that he was creating every week.
Yeah. And it's just, back then that was cool. Like that was like, because there was no such thing as like Biggie Smalls or.
This is my feelings about religion to some degree. I like this expression, which is God rules with two hands. It's justice and mercy, right? And we've talked about this before. It's the idea that there's a lot in the more kind of contemporary Christian movement, which is, for instance, I was baptized Catholic, and I grew up in that. For the most time, when I tell people about my Catholicism or my Catholic upbringing, really quickly you get like a dirty look, at least in this particular part of the country.
Yeah.
Catholicism is at a hard go.
Yeah.
And it's for two reasons primarily. One is the the pee-pee touching.
Yeah.
But really what most people I think are referring to is this idea that Catholicism has been branded as like a very sinful philosophy. There's original sin. There's an idea that we're all going to hell if we don't, if we don't.
It's rigid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of guilt and shame that people that abide by Catholicism are sort of, they have foisted upon them in a way that they find to be really hurtful. But so then what happens is if you don't like that depiction of God, and there's a good reason to not like that depiction of God, that's the justice side, right? And then the other side is the mercy side. So it's like we like the mercy side because the mercy side is like you are made perfectly in the image of God. You are good just as you are. God loves you eternally, no matter what. He made you. And so there's this other, and it's hard to square that circle, right? Of those two things.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's this, I think that's important. I think what has made religion, so uncool for me now has been such an emphasis on the mercy side, Okay. And
you want it to be more rigid.
I think so. I mean, at this point in my life, but when I was growing up, I was probably more turned off by the rigidness of it.
Of course, right? Discipline. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like you need to,
conform.
Behave a certain way, conform a certain way, but there's no balls to the whole, to the other side, and the part of us that there is that, there's this idea that you hear about, which is this integration of parts of us. If we do appreciate the punk rocker or the gangster, or the Joker, if these characters are inherently attractive to us for some reason, that means that they are sort of part of us. There's part of us that is recognizing.
We identify.
So the proper thing to do is to properly integrate that part of you.
The people we rub shoulders with have literally gone to the gates of insanity. They've literally been in hell, like crazy, wild stories of like.
And then, so what's attractive about that? Why are we more attracted? But it's like seems like
maybe it's because it takes one to know one, right? Yeah. Like you've gone off the rocker, been near suicidal. So have I. We're heavy drug addicts, right? Like we would, if this was a beer and I was drinking it, the party would just start, and it would be cocaine and hookers and just. Until I'm locked up or in jail, right? And same thing with you. Like
mad.
We go literally mad, like Nietzsche's The Madman, right?
That's what we want to see. It's the overcoming of innocence, right? And naivety, which is you can't really go around that. Ultimately,
yeah, you can't.
It comes down to this the idea of morality. If you're just being moral because you're obedient, or you're doing as you're told, you haven't actually. You're not doing it for the right reason. There's
compliance for surrender.
There's a better, exactly. There's a better motive for doing anything in life than just doing it because you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. A higher purpose or a higher order.
Yeah. No, I think we figured it out. All right.
Have a good
Until next time.
All right.